Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to talk about why you should start a newsletter. Now, newsletters are all the rage these days. You may have heard of platforms like Substack, which has a bunch of famous people writing on it. Lots of famous journalists have left their traditional media jobs in order to write independently on Substack, which I personally think is pretty cool. My own newsletter started on Substack, and there's certainly a lot to be said about it that is great. I actually did a pro-con kind of thing between Substack and ConvertKit in a former video that's gotten a fair bit of attention. I think people are kind of interested in that kind of thing, but that is not our focus today. Today, I wanted to talk about why you should be writing a newsletter more generally speaking. So technology agnostic, what are the general, really beneficial reasons why you should consider writing a newsletter? So I've got 3 points to talk about. Number 1, it helps you catalog your ideas. Number 2, it helps you connect with others. And number 3, it cuts down on platform risk. Okay, let's get into the first one. So it helps you test and catalog your ideas. So I can't tell you how many times that I've just been going around my week and I come across a really interesting idea. And so I end up writing a list of ideas that I have specifically for the newsletter. So in a way, my newsletter is essentially a reflection of what I've been thinking about at any given time. My newsletter follows the format where I talk about the most interesting idea I found that week. And so if I look back historically, it's just a really good record of what I was thinking most about at any given time. And so it kind of gives me a bit of a log of what was most on my mind at any given point. In addition to that, I am able to test out ideas. So a lot of times I will start with an idea as part of the newsletter, and if it tends to generate a lot of discussion. So that happened with a newsletter that I wrote about this tennis player named Erik Budirak, and that generated a good bit of discussion with a few people on the newsletter, and so I ended up turning that into a video. So that's just one example of how the content can kind of travel from newsletter to YouTube for me, but if you happen to create elsewhere, then it could be a really, really good way for you to reuse and recycle content and not have to come up with fresh ideas for every single platform. So that's testing and cataloging your ideas, but a newsletter is also really great for connecting with others. So I've currently got about 40 people on my list, and that's not a huge number, but even just with that small of a number, it's been really interesting how people have started to engage with me. So I've got friends that maybe I don't talk to all the time on there. I've got family, I've got acquaintances, I've got people that have found me through YouTube and other ways. And so there's a pretty broad range of people there. And it's been really, really cool to see how even just getting one email a week from me has sparked new conversations or new discussions, or maybe has encouraged somebody that I haven't spoken with in a while to reach out. All those kind of things I think are really, really cool kind of side benefits of having a newsletter. At the end of the day, we're essentially just discussing interesting ideas, or at least ideas that are interesting to me. And so that is a huge win in my opinion. To be able to talk about interesting ideas with people that I like is really cool. So I started this in the pandemic, and since then it's essentially sparked, I'd say, at least one conversation a week about something I wrote or something I linked in the newsletter, and it's just been fun. So if you're the kind of person that struggles to keep in touch with your friends, then you might start a newsletter, if for no other reason just to give people an update. Now, I didn't think that people would be super interested in my life, but I've been kind of pleasantly surprised by how many people say they enjoy it, or that it's become part of their routine because I send it out at the same time every week. Quick plug, my newsletter is called L-Bombs World, which is a play on E-Bombs World, the early internet website, and it comes out every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As I mentioned, it's kind of my best idea of the week, as well as links to what I'm reading, watching, and listening to, as well as to my YouTube videos. So if that sounds interesting, the link is below, and feel free to subscribe. Even if your list never grows beyond friends and family, my point is that I think it is a pretty interesting and convenient touch point for a lot of people, and it's a great way to maintain bonds and connections. And the third reason why you should start a newsletter is that it cuts down on platform risk. So platform risk is essentially the idea that you don't have a direct connection with your audience. So for me, take YouTube, I have about 400-ish subscribers, but I don't really have a way to talk to those people directly. It's all mediated through YouTube. And if for some reason YouTube decided that I had violated their guidelines and they decided to delete my channel, I wouldn't have any way to regain contact with my subscribers. There's been a few notable cases of this. Probably the most prominent one is Donald Trump getting banned from Twitter and some of the other social medias. That is a kind of severed connection. And without those social media platforms, it's really hard to have a direct connection with your audience unless you have another means of doing so. Now, that's where email comes in. Email is incredible for this. It is a direct connection to a person. It's not mediated by a platform. You can take your list wherever you go, and it is a little bit more personal, so you have more control over the communication. And if you have a good email platform, it gives you a lot more in-depth analytics as well into who's clicking on what, who's opening your emails, who is really interested, and it's not so easy to tell those kind of things with YouTube, for example. So email is really the way to cut down on platform risk and make sure that you can maintain your connection with your audience and not have it be mediated through some big tech company that could kind of cut off the lights at any point. A lot of people have found this out the hard way, so I think it's really worth thinking twice about establishing a solid email list if you happen to have a significant or even a small social following. So those are my top 3 reasons for starting an email newsletter, but I'm sure there's a bunch more. So let me know below, why do you think it's important to write an email newsletter if you do? If you don't, are you considering it? Let me know. I'm always happy to hear from you. Thanks so much for watching to the end. If you're still here, then you'd probably like the rest of my channel, which focuses on code, personal finance, and self-improvement. So if that sounds interesting, feel free to subscribe. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.